Good morning, America. This is Nicole Sauce with another thought of the walk. And today I want to talk about courage. We haven't talked about courage much, but people often write me notes in email talking about how getting involved with our community or connecting with my podcast or watching these thoughts of the walk has given them inspiration and courage to take steps in their lives that they need to take to make their lives what they want them to be. And that's really awesome. But I got to thinking about courage and humans and how, what is courage, right? What is courage? Is courage walking up to that rattlesnake and getting it away from your kids or your livestock? Is that courage? Is courage jumping out of the car and rushing to help somebody who's been in an accident, who's about to bleed out, and you have skills to help them, to keep them from bleeding out? Or is courage being strong enough to stand up and say what your principles are and stand by them? What is courage? I've been thinking about principles and courage a lot lately because I'm watching people who have no courage shrink back from standing up in simple situations and just saying what they think. I'm watching other people stand up in great adversity and saying what they think. And it all takes courage. And then there are other places where courage is required, right? I've seen some people recently who have children with needs beyond what they can provide reach out and ask for help. That takes courage. That means you have to admit you can't do everything by yourself, and that's not something we all like to admit. That takes courage. And then when they get told they can't have help, fight for it. That takes courage, right? I've watched learned a lot about addiction in the last few years. You know something? Addressing your addiction problems takes courage. You know why? Because that addiction space, like if you're addicted to, I don't know, cocaine or something. Cocaine's a nice light one. If you're addicted to cocaine, when you use cocaine, you feel normal. And when you don't use cocaine, you don't feel normal. And it's scary. So it takes courage to stop using cocaine and address the not normal feelings that you have. And how you get that courage is different for every person, right? Isn't it fun how we switch sides on these thoughts of the walk? It's because my right arm gets tired and my left arm, it's up. We'll change again, I'm sure. Right now, we have a lot of people who quietly think a thing or don't say a thing because they're tired of rocking the boat. And I agree, arguing with people on the internet isn't worth your time, especially if it degrades into ad hominem attacks and, all of the argumentative, persuasive techniques. We've talked about that. When people are discussing with you to win rather than to learn, it's not a discussion worth having, in my opinion, and you should walk away. At the same time, letting those people bully you into silence is a problem. But it's hard to have courage, especially if there's something on the line for you. Because the reality is, when you act with courage and you act with principle, guess what happens? Sometimes people don't like it. They don't like it. And when they don't like it, they take action. And you could get more bullying. So I think acting with courage, it is important to analyze what's going to happen. What are my outcomes? What am I putting on the line here? But if the thing keeping you from having courage to stand on solid principles and to say gently things that you think are important, or just to share information, I was asked yesterday on Facebook by somebody I know to explain sort of in summary what I've learned about COVIDs from talking to different medical staff. And what I've done at this point, because the media spin is so one way or the other, and literally it's all in on 100% shot, or it's all in on 100% doesn't exist. There's some gray areas, but most of the information I find is so spun in one way or the other that then you look at the data, the underlying data, And sometimes it doesn't fit. Sometimes it's clear the report was done with the intention of having an outcome, or the study was done that they wanted to have. And and then you look at the reporting issues, right? Like data reporting in VAERS is not, it's hard to do. Traditionally not done consistently. Right now is when I have to say, let's turn around. Traditionally not done as consistently because it takes time. The system itself is glitching out, so we don't really know on this experimental shot what's really up from that resource, right? So then I thought, well, I know people who work in the medical world. I'm going to call them. I'm going to find out what they say. And I talked to some who are all in on one narrative. I talked to some who are all in on another narrative. But I'll tell you what, most people are all in on neither narrative. No, in fact, they're wishing that this would stop being such a political issue. Period. End of story. And I agree with them. It shouldn't be. This should not be political. What you do with this should be between you and your doctor and you and your conscience. You make the best decision you can. It's nobody else's business. Those are my principles on this matter. And talking about that invites a lot of abuse online because people have bought into one or the other narrative and they can just saw it off, in my opinion. It's my opinion, Why does my opinion matter to you? I'm not killing your children by making my own decisions. Well, they think I am. That's a different story for a different thought of the walk. But I have to say, I didn't say things as strongly the last couple of months as I normally would have. You know why? I've got some really nice pictures on Facebook that I like. And I didn't want to lose them. And every time I went through their backup process, it glitched out. Well, now I got my pictures, so F you, Facebook. I'm going to say what I want. I was just preserving something I wanted from the last, 10 years or so. I don't know how long I've been using it. And it's a good lesson in depending on third-party systems for data storage, just in case you haven't addressed that one. But the person asked me what I had learned from direct interviews, and I started writing what I had learned, and it does not fit the narrative at all. And I got about halfway through, and it was a long comment, and when you have long comments on Facebook, it's like, at some point you just gotta shut up. And I said, that would make a better podcast than a Facebook comment, but this is some of the things I have learned from people who are working directly with patients with the virus and in the very medical industry that we all have an opinion about how they should be handling things. And I'm just waiting because I know about 3 people in my friends list are not going to like what I had to say. And I don't know that I can call them friends anymore because they're willing to attack me personally every time I say something they don't like. I've just left them there because I want to see how the brainwashed react to things they don't like to hear at this point. And they haven't said anything yet. So I don't know. This person just said thanks for sharing. And they probably have a different opinion, I would guess. We are people who have different opinions and can share. But does that take courage to do? You know what? Not really. That's the funny part. That little post and taking the time to make those calls didn't take courage, it just took time. Because my worst repercussion for posting something like that on the internet is that my account gets taken down. So what? What will take more courage is if I'm faced with making a decision between trading my long-term health potentially and keeping my job to put food on the table and deciding that my principles and my health are more important. That takes courage. And being willing to talk about it, that takes courage. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is we're going into a phase where we need to stand up peacefully. We need to stand up in a measured way that's not, frantic or crazy looking. And we need to stand up next to people who are doing the courageous thing if we are not in that position. Because you know what makes it easier to be courageous? People who have your back. It's very nice to have people who have your back. It's why I keep saying go to events, go meet people, make those real relationships, because those are the people who will have your back. But don't be afraid to speak up on behalf of somebody and have their back or stand next to them. Because right now, we're now seeing who's willing to stand up. Make it a great week.